Hello everybody and welcome back. So we left off here and I'm going to show you what we are aiming for. So we are aiming to have this kind of setup. So now we have refreshed our mind, we can go back. So we are here and let's start with a little bit bigger. So we have, let's do 20 by 20 and we start this. Or actually, let's do 50. That's going to be fine. So now we want this sphere moving around, and we want to interact with the pillars. So just the first thing we want to do, we want to create a kind of a distance. So check out the distance, and we're going to debug it with colors first. So let's see. We need to move this position into the VFX setup. The way to do this, so here we have the VFX setup and we have the parameters here. So if we do add component and we do bind, let's see, VFX property binder, that's the one. So if we add this one and then we do add one here and we do transform, we do position, and then we just take this moving transform, because if we look here, here is the box, right? And it's moving around. But we might have this box being up here. So, yeah, forget what I said. I will cover that later. But for now, this position we need. So we're just gonna put this one in here, down here. So we just drag this moving boxes, moving transform. That's the one we're gonna plug in. Moving transform, and I did. That's perfect. So we need to now when we have it set up like this, this property needs to match what we do in here. So this is going to be the box position. So we're going to use this. So we have the box position here. Then we're going to do here property and do vector free. And this is also going to be box position. And later, it's important to make sure that we do this space. So we want it to be local, and so make sure you do it, because we want to work in the local space here. So whatever value we get in from this box position needs to be in the local space on the VFX setup. So even if we move this setup away here, it needs to kind of compensate for that. So that's why we do it to local in here. So now we will have the box position. If we do get position, so when we get the position, we are actually fetching this one here. So we get all the positions here. Then we just do a distance. Now we have the distance between these. So if we just plug it into the color, you see, yeah, it's hard to see what's going on. So what we can do, if we just remap, so we make sure we clamp it, and if we just make sure that the value is like, say, like this. So I'm going to explain what's going on, because now it's going to be more easier to understand. So now we are measuring the distance, and first things first, we are measuring from this position up to here. And we want it to just measure the distance on the grid here. What I mean by that, let's imagine that our moving box is down here all the time. So this is the distance we want to measure, but we want the box to be up here. So then you see it's kind of getting the wrong value. So what we're going to do, we're just going to make sure that we are, and this is important down the line, because later when the pillars is moving up and down, the box is going in circles, they're going to have totally different this I value. So what we're going to do, we're going to make sure that we only measure the distance with the kind of 2D plane. So we always had an I value to 0. So now when we move this box up and down, it doesn't really matter where it is. So now we know that it works. So here the remap is that we want the remap start when the distance is at 4 and until it's 8. So here it's kind of 0 up until 4. And then whenever it's 8, it's going to be 1 and always 1. So that's the clamp. So if you remove clamp, it will be kind of over, it should be, here we can see it's a little bit super bright. But if we clamp it, it won't go overshooting the values. So it will clamp it, so that's good. So we want to control these values here. So let's close these ones, and then we're going to add some new ones. And this is going to be a property, and we're going to have it as a float. Float. And we're going to call this one, it will make sense later, drag up min distance. And then we're going to have this one, let's do 2 there. And then we just copy paste this one. And I want it to be down here. So drag min is going to be, this one going to be drag max. So if we have these ones here and we just plug them down here. So we have the max and we have the min. So this is the drag up min distance. So the minimum distance when it starts to drag up the stuff, going to be this one. This is going to be the max distance. So now we can control these ones instead. So we have kind of exposed them. So that's really good. So now we know this setup works. So we can leave the color for now. We're going to address that a little bit later. So here in the update particles, we're going to do set position. So now everything's going to go into the center because we set all the particles to the center. So if we get the position and plug this one in here. And notice I'm just plugging in X and Z because they are always in 0. So now we have it back as we want. And the thing is, because we're updating every frame. So if we update the next frame when we get, it will use the last position. So because so what's important in that context is that if we change the I value like this, then it will be read in the next frame. But because we just we're just calculating new position each frame, this is a safe setup. So that's why we're not really, that's why we're not kind of saving it. I hope it makes sense. We only overwrite the up and down value by doing this. So here we have it. And so what we can do now to make it a little bit more interesting is to, if we just flip this value here, now they're going up. Really cool. And then we can just do a remap. So here we can decide how much it's going to go up. So now it's going to go bananas, but if we just clamp it and do 0 to 1 maybe. So now we can decide. So the value here is going to be from 0 to 1. Then we can decide it's going to go from 0 to 1. So it's kind of the same. Now we just remap it so it goes a little bit higher. So now we have this set up. So this is super nice. So let's add some colors here. So if we want to control these colors. So let's do colors here somewhere. It's going to be color 1. Then we're going to have color 2 here. So we can have a little bit more interesting colors, maybe like this, and do this one. So let's do here, and then we do this one maybe. So then we can just, in the lerp, well, we use a lerp. Because what we have here, this is a value between 0 and 1. So if we put it in the third here, so now whenever it's 0, we're going to have this value. And whenever this one returns 1, we're going to have this value. So we just have color 2 and 1, and we do it like this. Now we use this as a color instead. So now we have it like this. Super cool. So maybe we want the greenish to be reddish and a little bit like this. Cool. So yeah, something like this. Let's clean up this a little bit. So this is going to be good. So I'm going to wrap it up for this lesson here. And in the next one, we're going to continue. We're going to add some noise, and we're going to make a little bit nicer surface. So it's not this squarish, but it's more a ring and so forth. So thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next tutorial.